Seven scrubbed the stone floors of the Blood Moon Pack's dining hall until her hands were raw. The cold seeped into her knees, and the smell of grease clung to her hair. No one looked at her. They never did. She was the seventh servant of the household, the one whose name had never been worth remembering. To them, she was seven, a number, not a person. And that was fine. Being invisible meant she survived. She had learned to make herself small, to fold her shoulders in, to speak only when spoken to. She wasn't a warrior. She wasn't a daughter anyone claimed. She was an Omega, the lowest of the low, the one the rest of the pack used for their chores, their tempers, and their ridicule. That night the pack house buzzed with tension. Word had spread faster than wildfire. The Alpha King was coming. Even the highest-ranked warriors whispered the name like a prayer or a curse. Ambrose Fitzgerald. Ruthless, unyielding, a predator in human skin. He was said to have crushed entire packs for defiance, to have painted fields red with the blood of rivals. His presence was enough to make alphas bow their heads and betas tremble. Seven didn't expect to see him up close. She would serve food and vanish into the corners, as always. But when the heavy doors swung open and the king himself strode into the hall, her life ended as she knew it. He was taller than she imagined, his shoulders broad beneath black leather lined with gold. His hair was dark, his jaw sharp, his eyes like molten gold. The room bent around him, wolves averting their gazes, spines stiff with respect and fear. Seven tried to shrink, clutching a tray of cups, but then his gaze shifted and landed on her. Her breath hitched, the air thickened, her pulse hammering in her throat. She thought she was mistaken, until it hit her. A snap so sharp, she nearly dropped the tray. The bond. Invisible threads of fate coiled tight around her chest, pulling her forward, demanding recognition. Her body screamed what her mind denied. The Alpha King was her mate. No. The whisper slipped out. A plea, a denial, a desperate prayer. Omegas did not mate with alphas. It was a law of nature, of blood, of the goddess herself. It was impossible. But Ambrose Fitzgerald's lips curved into something between a snarl and a smile. His voice rumbled through the hall like thunder, silencing every tongue. Because, little Omega, his golden eyes seared into hers, you are mine. The hall erupted. Wolves snarled in outrage, warriors shouted protests, and elders spat curses into the air. The Alpha King, bound to a servant? To an Omega? The very idea clawed at their order, their pride, their laws. Seven stumbled backward, the tray crashing to the ground, liquid pooling around her feet. She wanted to melt into the floor, to vanish before their rage could consume her. This couldn't be real. She was nothing. She was no one. Ambrose's hand shot out, unyielding, seizing her wrist. His grip was iron, but not cruel. Certainty burned in his eyes, as though he had waited lifetimes for this moment. But the whispers cut deeper than his touch. Impossible. A disgrace. She's nothing. Seven's chest constricted, her lungs begging for air. Tears pricked at her eyes, but she bit them back. She would not cry in front of them. She would not give them that power. And then, a voice she knew better than her own, pierced the uproar. Her sister, the girl she had once played with in hidden corners, the only blood who had ever smiled at her. Her face was pale now, her lips trembling. "You were never supposed to survive." The words cleaved through Seven's heart like a blade. She froze. What did that mean? The room blurred, spinning, the floor tilting beneath her knees. Her own sister's betrayal tasted worse than the pack's scorn. She turned to Ambrose, desperate for answers, desperate for something, anything, to make sense of this. But his eyes blazed, not with rage or pity, but with something worse, determination. And in that moment, she realized her life would never be the same again. That night, the Blood Moon Pack turned into a storm. The Alpha King's claim of 7 spread through the ranks like poison. By torchlight, wolves gathered outside the hall, their howls echoing in the air. Some shouted for her death. Others demanded Ambrose reject her immediately. 7 cowered in the shadows of her small servant's room, arms around her knees, trembling with every roar from outside. Her sister's words haunted her. Never supposed to survive. What did that mean? Why had the pack raised her only to treat her as a ghost? The door burst open. Ambrose filled the frame, his presence shoving the air from the room. His jaw was tight, his eyes still burning. "You will not hide," he said, his voice a command more than words. "Come." Please," 7 whispered, her throat raw. "They hate me. They'll kill me." "Let them try." His grip closed around her wrist again. "Not cruel, but absolute. You are mine, chosen by the moon goddess herself. Touch you, and they touch their king." Her breath stuttered. The words should have comforted her, but instead, they carved deeper fear into her chest. The entire pack against her. The king's will binding her. And within her own body, a strange heat that had begun to stir since their bond snapped, like fire clawing under her skin. The pack howled outside, fury shaking the night. The Alpha King's roar cut through them all, his voice a blade that silenced even the boldest warriors. "She is mine." And with that, Ambrose did the unthinkable. He tore her from the Blood Moon Pack. The night air was thick with smoke and fury. Torches flared along the pack house walls, their flames mirrored in the eyes of wolves who screamed for blood. 7 stumbled as Ambrose dragged her past them, her body trembling under the weight of so many hostile stares. "Alpha King," someone bellowed. "Reject her. She's nothing." "She'll deem us all," another cried, claws scraping against stone. 7 wanted to vanish into the earth. She wanted to scream that she agreed, that they were right, that she wasn't worth this war. But Ambrose's stride never faltered. His presence was a wall of iron, and with every step, the pack shrank back in spite of their rage. At the edge of the forest, the king's guards awaited with horses, eyes sharp, hands on their blades. "Your Majesty," one murmured, hesitation lacing his voice. "An Omega, the pack will never." Ambrose's glare silenced him. "She is mine," he growled, "chosen by the goddess herself. Anyone who questions her, questions me." The guard swallowed, bowed, and said no more. 7 mounted behind Ambrose, her body stiff, her fingers clutching the leather of his cloak. The moment the horse surged forward, the shouts of the Blood Moon Pack faded into the distance. Yet peace did not follow. The forest pressed in on them, branches clawing at her arms, the air growing colder with every mile. Her thoughts spun like a storm. Why me? Why would the moon goddess do this? Why would she bind the Alpha King to an Omega servant? The answer never came. Instead, something else stirred, low in her belly, crawling through her veins. A heat, a pressure, a pulse that didn't belong. Her breath quickened, her skin prickled as if fire danced beneath it. "Ambrose," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Something's wrong." The king glanced back, eyes narrowing. "What do you feel?" "Burning." "My bones." The pain slammed into her before she could finish. Her scream split the night as her body arched, every nerve alight with fire. Bones cracked, muscles tore, skin split. She collapsed onto the ground, writhing as the world shattered. Ambrose leapt from the horse, kneeling beside her. His hands hovered, helpless for once, his golden eyes wide with alarm. "Seven, listen to me. Breathe. Let it come." But she couldn't hear him through the agony. Fire devoured her from the inside out. Her fingers lengthened into claws. Her jaw cracked. Her spine arched until she thought it would snap. And then it was over. Silence fell, broken only by her ragged breathing. She lifted her head and froze. The world was different, sharper, brighter. The scent of pine stabbed her senses. The thrum of the earth beneath her paws vibrated through her chest. Pause. She looked down. Her body was covered in sleek black fur. Her reflection caught faintly in a pool of moonlight. Her wolf. Her first wolf. But this was no Omega's form. Power hummed through her body, thick and wild, making the very air tremble. Ambrose's jaw clenched as he took in her form. His golden eyes, always steady, flickered with something she had never thought possible. Fear. "Seven," he whispered, his voice unsteady. "What are you?" Days bled into restless nights. They camped in the forest, far from the howls of the Blood Moon pack, but peace never came. Seven's body hummed with power she didn't understand, her skin burning when she tried to sleep, her blood pulsing with an energy that refused to be silenced. Sometimes, sparks of light danced at her fingertips. Other times, the earth trembled beneath her bare feet. She didn't feel like herself anymore. She didn't feel like anything at all. Ambrose watched her closely. Not with suspicion, but with intensity, as if every twitch of her fingers might reveal the truth. He left at dawn each day, returning with scrolls, fragments of parchment, even relics pulled from abandoned ruins. When at last he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries. "I found it," he said, laying an ancient text across her lap. The ink was faded, but the symbols glowed faintly beneath the moonlight. Her eyes skimmed the page, though the words meant nothing to her. "What is this?" "History." Ambrose's jaw tightened. A history erased, buried, destroyed. Her pulse quickened. "What does it say?" He hesitated, as though speaking it aloud might change everything. Then he met her gaze, golden eyes hard as stone. "It says your bloodline is older than mine, older than every alpha who has ever ruled. Before the packs, before the laws, there were wolves who carried the goddess's first fire. They ruled, not by strength of armies, but by the power that lived in their very blood." Her chest tightened. "That's impossible. I'm no one." "You are not no one." His voice was sharp, final. "You are the last." Seven's breath caught. She shook her head, tears welling. "I'm just a servant. I've been nothing all my life. How could I?" "Because they made you nothing," Ambrose snapped, his voice a growl. "They buried your name. They hid your past. And now that power burns in your veins whether you want it or not." She stared at him, her body trembling. His certainty terrified her more than the pain of her first shift. "No," she whispered, clutching the edges of the scroll. I can't be what you say I am. But her blood betrayed her. That night, under the full moon, rival packs struck. Warriors poured through the trees, eyes gleaming, teeth bared. They came not for Ambrose, but for her. "The girl!" they howled. "The Omega! Kill her before she rises!" 7 froze, terror rooting her to the earth. Ambrose roared, his army clashing steel against steel, fang against fang. The forest erupted in chaos. But at the heart of it, she felt something else. Her blood screamed. The power surged, unstoppable. The ground trembled beneath her feet, cracks splitting the soil. Her howl tore through the night, echoing with an ancient resonance that silenced even the fiercest warriors. Wolves froze mid-attack, their bodies trembling. The earth itself seemed to bow beneath her voice. Ambrose turned, his eyes wide, his chest heaving. For the first time, the Alpha King was not the most powerful creature on the field. It was her. 7's body glowed with light, her power erupting like wildfire, scattering the enemy in terror. And for one terrifying moment, she knew what she was. Not an Omega, not a servant, not invisible. Something far older, far more dangerous, and far more unstoppable. The battlefield reeked of blood and smoke. The rival packs had fled into the trees, but their fear still clung to the air like ash. Warriors, both Ambrose's and her enemies, stared at 7 as though she were no longer mortal, no longer flesh and blood. Her chest heaved. Her hands trembled, still glowing faintly with the strange fire of her blood. She wanted to run, to hide, to bury herself in shadows as she always had. But there was no hiding now. They had seen her, all of them. Whispers rippled through the survivors. "The Omega!" "No, not Omega. Something else." 7 stumbled back, shaking her head. "I didn't mean to." Her voice cracked, thin and brittle. "I didn't want this." Ambrose strode forward, his golden eyes steady despite the storm that had just passed. He caught her shoulders in his hands, anchoring her as the earth tilted beneath her feet. "You are this," he said firmly, "and the world will have to kneel to it." She shuddered, tears threatening. "But I'm not strong. I don't even know who I am." "Yes, you do." His voice softened, the growl fading into something rare, almost tender. "You are mine, chosen by the goddess, bound by fate. No one can take that from you. Not the Blood Moon Pack, not the rivals, not even yourself." Her breath trembled. Deep down she wanted to believe him. But how could she reconcile the invisible servant with the force that had split the earth beneath her feet? The whispers spread like wildfire. Across territories, wolves spoke of the servant girl who wielded ancient power. Some called her a miracle, others a curse. 7, still unable to think of herself as anything more, kept to Ambrose's side as his army traveled between packs. Everywhere they went, stares followed her. Some eyes were wide with awe, others narrowed with suspicion. At night, she lay awake, the fire in her veins still restless. Ambrose would sit nearby, sharpening blades or reading from texts he never explained. Sometimes, she caught him watching her, a question always lingering in his gaze. The question he had asked the night of her first shift. "What are you?" She didn't know, and that terrified her more than anything. One evening, as they camped near a river, Ambrose finally spoke the truth she had been too afraid to voice. "You can't keep running from it," he said, his reflection shimmering beside hers in the water. Power like yours doesn't stay quiet. It will rise, whether you will it or not. Her throat tightened. And when it rises, what if I destroy everything? Ambrose turned to her, his expression unyielding. Then you will learn to master it. And I will stand beside you, no matter what it takes. For the first time, she saw no fear in his eyes, only conviction, only certainty. And for the first time, she let herself wonder if maybe, just maybe, she wasn't doomed to be nothing after all. The rival alphas came again, this time not with blades drawn, but with demands. They gathered in the clearing, their voices heavy with false civility, their gazes fixed on Seven. She is a threat. One sneered. Her bloodline is cursed. She will unmake the laws of our kind. Give her to us, another growled. Better she die now than bring ruin later. Seven's stomach twisted. Once she might have agreed. Once she would have gladly disappeared to make the world safer. But now, with Ambrose's hand steady on her back, she felt something stir. Anger. Not at herself, but at them, at their arrogance, at their fear. Ambrose's voice cut across the circle. Low and dangerous. Touch her, and you'll wish for death before it comes. The alphas snarled, but their eyes betrayed their hesitation. It wasn't Ambrose they feared. It was her. Seven stepped forward, her knees trembling, but her voice steady for the first time. You call me cursed. You call me worthless. You've called me Omega, servant, nothing, but you are wrong. A hush fell over the clearing. Even the trees seemed to lean closer. Her chest swelled, fire burning bright beneath her skin. I am not your nothing. I am not your mistake. I am the last heir of the bloodline you tried to erase, and I will not bow. Her voice rang through the clearing, and with it her power surged. The air thickened, pressing down on every wolf until their knees buckled. Even the rival alphas gasped, dropping to the ground beneath the weight of her presence. Ambrose's golden eyes shone with fierce pride. My Luna, he murmured. In that moment, Seven knew there was no going back. The day they returned to the Blood Moon Pack, the earth itself seemed to hold its breath. The same wolves who had spat on her name, who had mocked her, who had shouted for her death, now bowed their heads as she passed. Fear glimmered in their eyes, yes, but something else too, reverence. Seven's heart pounded as she walked beside Ambrose, her steps steady, even though her soul trembled. At the gates of the packhouse, Ambrose halted. He turned to her, his hand brushing her cheek, his voice low enough that only she could hear. You are not Seven anymore. Her breath caught. His gaze softened, golden fire breaking under the weight of something vulnerable. Your true name was stolen, hidden, but I found it, and I will never let it be taken again. Tears blurred her vision. What is it? His lips brushed her ear as he whispered, Adriana. The name struck through her like lightning, awakening something deep, something real. She had never known herself beyond the number they gave her, but now, Adriana, a name that felt like belonging, like destiny. She whispered it back, trembling, Adriana. Ambrose's hand tightened on hers. My mate, my queen. The pack gathered in the great hall, the very place where she had once scrubbed floors unseen. Now every head was bowed as she stood at Ambrose's side. The crown of Luna was placed upon her brow, not of gold alone, but of woven silver branches and stones that glowed faintly under the moonlight. Her knees trembled beneath the weight, not of the crown, but of the eyes watching her. The wolves who had once called her worthless now knelt. She lifted her chin. Her voice carried across the hall, steady and unbreakable. "I was never supposed to survive," she said. "But I did. I was never supposed to rise, but I have. I am Adriana, Luna of the Alpha King, and I will rule not with cruelty, not with fear, but with strength, with fire, and with love." The hall erupted in a roar, not of protest, but of allegiance. Wolves howled, voices joining in a chorus that shook the very walls. For the first time, Adriana smiled. That night, the pack feasted in her honor. Flames crackled, meat roasted, laughter mingled with song. But for Adriana, the noise blurred into a distant hum. What mattered was the man at her side. Ambrose's hand found hers beneath the table, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. His voice was low, meant only for her. "You were never invisible," he said softly. "The world tried to bury you, but the goddess herself chose you. And I—" He paused, his throat tight. "I am honored she did." Her eyes stung, tears slipping free, not of pain, but of something new. Something she had never known she could feel. Belonging. She leaned into him, her voice steady. "I thought I was nothing, but with you, I am more than I ever dreamed." Ambrose kissed her forehead, his lips lingering. "Not with me," he whispered. "With yourself. You were always more. Now the world will see it too." And as the moon rose high above, Adriana lifted her gaze to it, her heart no longer heavy with fear or shame. She had been a servant, a shadow, a discarded omega, but that girl was gone forever. In her place stood the Luna Queen, unbroken, unstoppable, and unafraid. The girl who was never meant to survive had become the queen who could never be broken, and beside her, the Alpha King. Together, they would rule, not with cruelty, not with fear, but with fire, with strength, with love, always with love.